Greetings and salutations. It is I, Mr. Nothing, the museum curator of the weird and the strange, and the host who might be a ghost. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I catalog all manner of strange and unusual literature that I have found in my travels. It is Short Story Tuesday, so I wanted to focus on some pretty good short stories. Specifically, it's going to be a little different today because I'm focusing on a collection of short stories rather than any one specific one. So I'm focusing on one story about a gay Jewish teenager and another one about a tattoo artist who has special powers. So I'm referring to We Love Anderson Cooper by R.L. Maizes. I picked this up from my local library, so that's always good, patronizing libraries. I don't think I would have found out about this book otherwise, so that's good. So I want to talk about two stories that I found in here. I would talk about the whole book, but since it's relatively new, I don't want to spoil it. Those new authors, they got to get their papers. So let's talk about it. The first story I want to talk about is We Love Anderson Cooper, the title story of the book. We Love Anderson Cooper focuses on a Jewish teenager named Marcus who is about to have his bar mitzvah. He's being asked to read Leviticus from the Torah. So he has a problem with that because he's a gay teenager as well. Like he's gay. I should specify that I'm not LGBTQA myself. So if I say anything wrong here, anything that's pretty terrible, I apologize. Please correct me. I'm always willing to learn. So for those that don't know, Leviticus is a Bible verse that specifically says that being gay is a sin. It says it's a sin to lay with another man. So you can see how a gay teenager wouldn't want to read that. Marcus has a plan though to come out at his bar mitzvah. For selfless reasons and selfish reasons. He wants to do it to make it known that it's okay to be gay, for other people to see that. But he also wants to do it because he thinks it'll gain him publicity. He's not a very popular kid at school, and he thinks it might gain him a few more friends. It might even earn him a chance to be on the Ellen DeGeneres show, which is, not exactly a good reason to come out, but hey, it is if it gets you out of the closet, whatever. However, when he comes out at his bar mitzvah, things do not go well. He ends up botching his speech that he didn't have it on him. So, which is very relatable. If I don't know what I'm going to say, I'll end up botching things too. So that was a little interesting part of the thing. The rabbi gets angry and his family leaves the bar mitzvah before they come back later in the evening for his reception. Yeah, the rabbi kicks him out, and he talks to his parents about it, and they're like, "Oh, it's fine. We wish you wouldn't have done it so publicly, but we want you to know that we love you. We love Anderson Cooper," they say, which is their way of signifying that they're okay with him being gay. During his speech, he accidentally outs his boyfriend. Their relationship is a bit unclear. His boyfriend Gavin, who is in attendance. So Gavin is a little distant from him because he didn't want to be outed at all at the ceremony. So things are a little shaky between them. They meet up at some point, and Gavin reveals that his dad told him that he doesn't like other gay people, but he'll accept him because he's his son. And Gavin's mom even starts crying. So she's I don't think she can accept him to the point that maybe his dad might be able to. So you already see that dichotomy, or the diversion point between Gavin and Marcus, where Marcus's parents are kind of accepting and Gavin's parents are not really. Gavin and Marcus end up having sex, but things are still kind of shaky between them. especially as Marcus wasn't popular before, but now because he came out and he's seen as brave, like people say, oh, he's pretty cool now. So, but whereas Gavin is kind of viewed as a tease for some reason, and he doesn't have the love and support of his parents like he used to. So there's kind of that jealousy and maybe even a little frustration with what Marcus did. And uh, by the end of by the end of the short story, Marcus is kind of up in the air about whether it was good or bad to come out as gay at the bar mitzvah. Uh, he still communicates with Gavin, but it's unclear where their relationship is heading, and that's how it ends. I like the ending because of how um, unsure it was, and how Gavin or Marcus believed that he still had a lot of room to breathe. And also, I like how it didn't just make Gavin and Marcus perfect for each other, as so many stories about gay individuals do, because they typically portray gay individuals as being soulmates, and there's not that in straight teenage romance stories. You have the whole, oh, I made a mistake when I was a teenager. Well, why don't you see that in LGBTQ whatever stories? So I think that's interesting right there. The second story that I ended up reading was Tattoo. Or the second story that I want to talk about is Tattoo. Tattoo focuses on Trey, uh, a sort of disfigured, out of work painter who applies to work in a tattoo shop. And although he has never done tattoos before and has no tattoos himself, he proves to be an excellent drawer, so he's hired on. He quickly finds out that he has a magical ability, and that his tattoos sort of come to life once he paints them, and a bit of magical realism that I think R.L. Maizes does well here. I'm always a sucker for good magical realism. For instance, painting or a tattoo of a rose gives a fragrant perfume, and a tattoo of a swamp creature gives off like you can see water dropping off the tattoo, which I think is interesting. And so he immediately becomes popular at the tattoo shop, much to the dismay of the other tattoo artists who don't have as much request anymore to do tattoos. Uh, Eventually, one of the tattoo seekers comes and asks him to draw on nipples on her boobs because she had cancer, and so uh, she's she believes that his ability will help her regain her boobs, her nipples, and she does, because it's as if the cancer wasn't even there, and so now a whole bunch of medical he gets a whole bunch of medical clients. Uh, who seek out his ability to give them what they may have lost because of their various illnesses, um, which is interesting. Trey eventually starts his own tattoo shop because of his popularity. He he eventually takes to tattooing himself. He's disfigured, in quotes, because the way she describes his disfigurement, it just sounds like normal human variation. But what's disfigurement to one person might be different to another. So he ends up like tattooing his face so that he's considered beautiful by other people's standards, and or even his own standards. And so like that amazes his wife, Nava, but she's she still accepts him. She loved him before, and she loves him now too. Uh, he does find that his wife Nava is a bit unaccepting of his life as a tattoo artist. She simply introduces him as a painter, and doesn't really talk about his life as a tattoo artist, and she doesn't really approve, despite the fact that it brings joy and financial stability to his life. Um, Eventually, the original cancer patient comes back to him and says, "The doctors have only given me a certain amount of time to live. What can you do to help?" And despite doing his best tattoo work and trying to instill energy and life within this cancer patient, she ends up dying a couple weeks later, which puts Trey into a big old funk. He becomes discouraged with his own ability, but because of Nava's support, he eventually moves beyond that funk. But he still starts painting pictures of these cancer patients, these people that have been lost along the way. And he, um, yeah, he So he paints them. He keeps them in storage. And the end of the short story sort of comments on how he can sort of hear their voices in the storage, but when he opens the door, they're all gone as if they're still dead. Which is really sad. It's but I like the sort of parallel to Icarus where he flew too close to the sun and now he's suffering for it by suffering for his ego, which isn't an exact parallel of Icarus, but you know I'm going to attribute that. So those are two short stories that I absolutely loved. There were a couple themes that I noticed running throughout these two short stories and really the rest of the book. The first one is how a lot of the characters are marginalized members of society. Uh, Marcus and We Love Anderson Cooper is a gay Jewish teenager. Trey is a disfigured man, and people with disfigurements are often, neglected by society. A lot of the other characters in this book are Jewish as well, which leads me to suspect that R.L. Maizes might be Jewish herself if she's writing so frequently about that. But that's not important. That's just a detail that enriches the background of the author, I think. So these characters are come from a marginalized background. Even one character in one story that I read, Collections, the character's name is Maya. She's a Latina service worker in a society that so often rejects Latina service workers. So she's really talking about how society treats the marginalized and the often neglected. I find it fascinating, and I love how she gives each character a unique voice, even though they're all marginalized, but they all have different voices. Each struggle is a different struggle, and that's what I wanted to point out there. The second point I got was that there's a lot of the characters feel neglect from loved ones or disappointment in loved ones because of their action. Trey feels that Nava doesn't support his new tattoo lifestyle, even though it brings him joy and financial stability, which he hasn't had in a long time. She still feels kind of embarrassed by him. She still admits that she loves him, uh, even when he loses his good looks eventually. She still stands by him as one of the few people to do that. So um, it's not as prevalent in that story, but in We Love Anderson Cooper, it's rampant. First and foremost, there's the rift growing between Marcus and Gavin. Uh, there used to be something there, but now there isn't quite anything. Gavin no longer feels the support or love of his mom and dad, which is unfortunate. And he feels betrayed by Marcus for the stunt he did in church, his coming out speech. Marcus has the love and support of his parents, but their support is a bit weird. Um, and that they tell him that they support him, that they still love him, even though he came out. Uh, and they say it by saying, "Oh, we love Anderson Cooper," which is a very weird way to phrase it. It's like saying, "Oh, I'm not racist. I love black people," or I I don't have a problem with the LGBT community. I love Ellen DeGeneres. Just because you like one particular inoffensive, camera-ready news reporter doesn't mean you support the entire community, and doesn't necessarily mean that you the support your gay child. It just means that you like Anderson Cooper. Um, so that I found that to be very outstanding. I don't know if R.L. Maizes does it sincerely or if she's trying to draw attention to this problematic behavior. She could be it could be something that she believes, that if you like Anderson Cooper, that you're a friend of the LGBT community, which I have a lot of problems with. And I could talk for hours about that. But I think she's doing it to draw attention to the behavior, based on the other stories that I've read here, um, as well as the fact that it's the title of the short story. She's trying to call attention to that particular sentence, I think. So I would say that good on her for drawing attention to it. And even though, like, his parents say they they support him, they still say that problematic sentence right there. And then Later, uh, Marcus's mom is sort of unhappy because she thinks that Marcus's outburst at the synagogue will make it so that she won't be able to retain her high position in the synagogue group that she's in, the church group, whatever the synonym is for the synagogue. So she's worried that like the way he came out will be less than pleasant for her. So there is that sort of shame. And in the past, Marcus's grandma even notes that they didn't talk about his great uncle's homosexuality. Um, they kind of didn't talk about it. So there is a shame that exists there, and it seems to be continuing now. And I think that's a very interesting way to write the story and uh, showing the different kind of non-acceptance that exists in society. If you read the story or if you think what I'm saying it doesn't match up, feel free to share what you think in the comments below. I would love to hear your opinion, especially given that I'm not part of the LGBT community, so I'm always willing to learn more to better my understanding. Those are the two short stories that I read for this. I absolutely wholeheartedly recommend this. She's a fairly new author, R.L. Maizes. Uh, there's not a lot about her online, so it's quite different from reading like Jules Verne or Max Brooks or any other author who is pre 2000, because there's a whole bunch of information out about them, but very little about R.L. Maizes. Yeah, so I definitely recommend this, and I do recommend. Well, I recommend for myself finding her book that was released after this, because the publisher told her that they would only release this if she also wrote a novel alongside it, because there was no market for short stories, which I think is ridiculous. This is wonderful, and it's a shame that it was being held up by a perceived lack of interest in the market. Um, Anyways, yeah, I recommend it. That's all I have to say about that. And I bid you good day and have fun in your weird travels. Bye.